targets against Iran. And as I am talking right now, it's continuing. The bombing campaign is continuing. Here is what is so remarkable is that Israel was involved in a little bit of a deception campaign. Totally legitimate. There's nothing wrong with deceiving your enemy. Israel said, oh, Netanyahu's going to go to a wedding and we're going to try to slow walk. We might go to D.C. and, have some talks and some diplomacy. And amazingly, Iran let its guard down. Israel was able to infiltrate the inner circle of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They were able to infiltrate the top levels of the IRGC. And we're going to learn a lot more of what happened in the days and weeks of exactly what has happened. But this was not merely just a bombing attack against Iran's nuclear facilities. It was a decapitation strike against the entire Iranian military.
Charlie Kirk made a statement regarding Israel's conflict with Iran, saying that it is morally acceptable to deceive your enemy during war. Understandably, this raises serious ethical questions, particularly because Kirk is a vocal Christian who claims to draw his values from the Bible. Let's examine whether deception in warfare can be justified from a biblical and moral standpoint. At first glance, the Bible appears to strongly condemn all forms of lying. For example, Proverbs 12:22 says, "Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight." Zephaniah 3:13 prophesies that in the redeemed future, the remnant of Israel will no longer do wrong or speak lies, nor will a deceitful tongue be found in their mouths. But they will feed and lie down, with no one to make them tremble. Verses like these seem to paint a black and white moral picture. Lying is evil, and God detests it. So how can a professing Christian like Charlie Kirk claim that it is morally permissible to lie to one's enemy in war? The answer is that the biblical tradition does not treat all deception as equally wrong. When examined in context, the Bible shows situational nuance, especially when lies are used to protect innocent life or defeat evil. 1. The Hebrew midwives in Exodus. In Exodus 1:15-21, Pharaoh commanded the Hebrew midwives, or some say they were Egyptian midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, to kill all male Israelite babies at birth. The women feared God and refused. When Pharaoh questioned them, they lied, saying that the Hebrew women gave birth too quickly for them to intervene. The midwives answered Pharaoh, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive." This lie seems quite convoluted and absurd, but the point is that they lied to save babies from imminent death, and God rewarded them for it. God did not punish them for this deception. On the contrary, so God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. We also learn from here that having a family can be a reward. So their lie saved countless lives, and God rewarded them. Jewish and Christian commentators have long interpreted this as divine approval of their moral courage, even though it involved deception. 2. Rahab in the book of Joshua. In Joshua 2, the Canaanite woman Rahab hides 2 Israelite spies and lies to her own king's soldiers, claiming the spies had already left the city. Her actions directly helped the Israelites conquer Jericho. In the Jewish and Christian traditions, she is praised, as Hebrews 11:31 says, "By faith the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies in peace, did not perish with those who were disobedient." And James 2:25 adds, "In the same way, was not even Rahab the prostitute justified by her actions when she welcomed the spies and sent them off on another route?" Zero condemnation detected, only praise. Again, we see biblical commendation for deception when it serves to protect life from imminent danger and aid a just cause. Moreover, the use of spies in and of itself is quite deceptive. 3. Moral principle. Not all lies are equal. These examples suggest that while the Bible upholds truthfulness as a strong general virtue, it also recognizes that context matters. Deception used in warfare, or to protect the innocent, is not placed in the same moral category as selfish lies, slander, or deceit for personal gain. So, when Charlie Kirk says it's okay to deceive your enemy in war, he's not contradicting biblical morality. He's actually aligning with a deeper, more contextual reading of Scripture. The Bible is clear that truth matters deeply, but it also shows that lying to save lives or defeat an evil regime can be morally acceptable, even righteous. To ignore this nuance and insist that all deception is evil would not only flatten biblical ethics, but also render the moral vision of the Bible naive in the face of real-world evil. The challenge, as always, is discerning when a lie serves goodness and truth itself. 4. Deception in warfare, a logical and moral defense. The idea that deception in war is morally acceptable is not only intuitive, it's backed by centuries of both military strategy and moral reasoning. Deception has long been recognized as a critical tool of warfare, and there is nothing inherently immoral about using it in that context. Let's start with a simple but powerful logic. If it is morally permissible to kill an enemy soldier in war, then surely it is also permissible to lie to them. This follows a form of reasoning known in Jewish philosophy as kal vachomer, an a fortiori argument. If the greater harm, killing, is justified in a war scenario, then the lesser harm, lying or deceiving, must also be permitted. The enemy soldier has already forfeited their right to life by taking up arms against your people, so how could they possibly retain a right to the truth? Enemies who seek to kill you have forfeited rights. When someone is actively trying to invade your land, murder your citizens, or exterminate your people, they are not innocent civilians. They are enemy combatants. And enemy combatants, under the laws of war and natural moral reasoning, do not retain the same moral rights as civilians in peaceful society. They are lawfully targeted for destruction, not because we relish death, but because neutralizing them is necessary to prevent greater harm. In such a context, demanding that you tell the truth to your would-be killer is absurd. Imagine confronting an attacker in a dark alley and insisting on honesty while they try to stab you. It's ludicrous. War is simply this situation on a larger scale. Deception becomes not just permissible, it becomes a duty if it helps end the war faster, with fewer casualties on your side. Ambushes, misdirection, and asymmetry are standard. Take the example of an ambush. In almost every military tradition, ambushes are a classic tactic, not because they are fair in some sporting sense, but because they work. You do not have to tell the enemy where you are, when you'll strike, or how many soldiers you'll use. In fact, doing so would be gross negligence, potentially leading to the deaths of your own forces. There is no law, moral or legal, that says wars must be conducted like chess matches, with equal moves and gentlemanly behavior. In war, you mislead your enemy, outmaneuver them, and crush them, because failure to do so puts your own soldiers and civilians at risk. Compassion for your enemy becomes cruelty to your own people. The law of war. Disproportionality is misunderstood. This point is well supported in international law. As noted by a professor of international law at the Hebrew University, who has written extensively on armed conflict. Anyone with experience in armed conflict knows that you want to hit the enemy's forces harder than they hit you. If you are attacked with a rifle, there is no rule that stipulates that you can only shoot back with a rifle, but using a machine gun would not be fair, or that if you are attacked with only one tank, you cannot shoot back with two. 5. War is deceit in Islam. We now turn to a well-known saying attributed to Muhammad, one that has drawn attention from critics and defenders alike. War is deceit. This hadith is widely accepted as authentic and appears in 5 of the 6 major Sunni hadith collections, including Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan ibn Majah, Sunan Abu Dawud, and Sunan al-Tirmidhi. In short, it is considered a reliable reflection of Muhammad's teachings on warfare. Islamic scholar Professor Joel Hayward, writing from a sympathetic perspective, attempts to place this statement in a broader context. While his framing is apologetic in tone, we are focused only on the ethical element. He confirms that Muhammad did in fact say war is deceit, and notes that this was not a one-time comment, but a routine strategy used by Muhammad himself. Even if Muhammad did say that war is deceit in relation to this case, Ibrahim should have known and reported that he also said it routinely on other occasions relating to war, as Sunan Abu Dawud reveals. Narrated Ka'b ibn Malik. When the Prophet intended to go on an expedition, he always pretended to be going somewhere else, and he would say, "War is deception." Perhaps Ibrahim does not quote the Abu Dawud narration of the hadith, because the hiding of one's route of advance is militarily clever and has featured in every good general's art of war throughout history. This deceptive strategy was not a moral failure, but a deliberate wartime tactic, the kind of strategy used by generals throughout history. Misleading one's enemy about troop movements or battle plans is standard military wisdom. No one expects full transparency in war because doing so would be suicidal. So in the context of armed conflict, deception is not just permissible, it's often morally justified. But here's where we need to be extremely careful. 6. Not all wars are morally equal. Just because deception may be justified in one war does not mean it is justified in every war. Some wars are clearly defensive and just, while others are aggressive and unjust. Deceiving an enemy who is attempting genocide is very different from deceiving an enemy in a war of conquest or religious domination. The moral weight of deception depends not only on the tactic, but on the justice of the cause itself. And of course, this idea that war is deception can and has been abused, which is something we will discuss further. And this brings us to the critical error many people make today. 7. Misapplying the war is deceit mentality to culture wars and politics. We live in an age where everything is called a war, a culture war, a political war, a war on ideas. While these rhetorical framings may be valid, they can create moral confusion. Because if we treat every ideological disagreement as literal war, then by extension, we justify deception, manipulation, and dishonesty, not just against actual enemies, but against fellow citizens. That's a dangerous path. In a literal war, the enemy is trying to kill you, or take your land, or destroy your people. Their intent is physical harm, and your goal is to stop the threat as quickly as possible. You don't need to persuade enemy soldiers, you just need to neutralize them. Deception is a strategic tool to achieve that goal. But in the culture war, in politics, the other side may be misguided, but they're usually not trying to kill you. That's a massive difference. They may be pushing policies or moral ideas you believe are deeply harmful, but their stated intention is often to improve society, even if you disagree with their vision. You don't defeat people like that with bullets or lies. You persuade them with facts, reason, logic, evidence, and better ideas. 8. Why deception in cultural battles is morally and strategically wrong. Let's say you're a public speaker or cultural commentator. You tell a lie to make your side look good or the other side look bad. What happens next? If you're caught, and you probably will be, you lose credibility. Your supporters start to doubt you. The people you are trying to persuade now have a reason to dismiss everything you say, and you may begin to lose your own moral compass. Even if the lie worked in the short term, it backfires long term. If truth is on your side, you don't need to lie. If your position requires lying to win, maybe that's a sign you're not on the right side after all. Furthermore, when you lie in the name of a culture war, you don't just deceive your enemies, you deceive your supporters too. You tarnish the very cause you claim to serve. This kind of moral corrosion damages both sides and undermines the public discourse as a whole. 9. The final contrast. War is not debate. In a literal war, you aim to defeat or eliminate the enemy. In a culture war, you aim to convince the other side, or at least contain their influence through democratic means. That's a massive ethical difference. Deception in a battlefield may be moral. Deception in a public debate is not. So let's be clear. Yes, war may involve deception, and rightly so. But not everything is a literal war, nor am I implying Kirk believes this. But if we treat politics, culture, and moral disagreement as literal war zones, we destroy the very foundations of trust, truth, and civil society. So don't abuse the principles we discussed. Don't confuse cultural warfare with real physical warfare. Don't justify dishonesty in the name of your cause. And if you're truly on the side of truth, you should welcome the spotlight of honesty, not fear it. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share if you found this helpful.